Welcome to Race to the Finish.
Against St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay.
The 2005 American League standings were a familiar sight to baseball fans. The Angels and A's were battling for the division crown out west, and the Red Sox and Yankees were battling for division title out east. However, two new contenders emerged in the AL Central. The Twins, who had won the division the previous 3 years, had slumped in the second half and were pretty much out of contention by September. The Chicago White Sox, who hadn't made the playoffs in 5 years, took the American League by storm, blowing everyone out of the water that season. The Cleveland Indians, who hadn't made the playoffs in 4 years, were contending for the wild card. The New York Yankees had made the playoffs each of the last 10 seasons. However, the previous year was marred by their blown 3-0 lead in the ALCS to their rival Red Sox, who went on to win the World Series for the first time in 86 years. That momentum carried over into 2005 as they started out 11-19, 9 games back of the division lead in early May. However, the star-studded lineup found their stroke as they broke 500 in early July and were just a couple games back of the Red Sox in the division in early September. Speaking of which, the defending World Series champion Red Sox had made the playoffs each of the last 2 seasons, but had never made the postseason in 3 consecutive years in their franchise history. Their 2005 season went along as expected, taking the division lead from the Orioles in late June and spent all but 1 day leading the AL East for the rest of the summer. On Friday, September 9th, the Yankees welcomed the Red Sox to town for a 3-game series. The Yankees had won the AL East the previous 7 years, while the Red Sox hadn't won it since 1995. The Yankees entered this series 4 games back of the Red Sox in the division and half game back of the Indians in the wild card. On Friday night, the Yankees struck first as A-Rod scored from second on a Tony Graffinino throwing error. After the Red Sox scored 3 to take the lead, they looked to add on when Kevin Millar ripped a 2-out double down the left field line. Jason Varitek tried to score all the way from first, but was thrown out at the plate to end the inning. In the bottom half of the inning, A-Rod hit his 41st homer of the year to tie the game at 3. The Yankees added more in the bottom of the 6th after a literal comedy of errors from the Red Sox defense, and the Yanks took Game 1 of the series by the score of 8-4. On Saturday afternoon, the Red Sox looked to regain their 4-game division lead, and Manny Ramirez helped out early with a 2-run shot in the first. The Red Sox added more in the 4th, aided by this Hideki Matsui drop fly ball that should have been just a sac fly. It was his second drop in 3 days. A few batters later, already up 7-0, Varitek grounded into what should have been an inning-ending double play, but rookie Robinson Cano airmailed the throw to first, allowing another run to score. Curt Schilling, who had been dealing with injury problems over the season, pitched 8 innings, allowing only 2 runs. The Red Sox got one back, winning Game 2 9-2. With the loss, the Yankees were now 1.5 games back of the Indians for the wild card. On Sunday, Jason Giambi hit a solo shot in the first inning off Tim Wakefield, and that would be all the Yankees would need. Randy Johnson pitched 7 scoreless innings, Mariano Rivera recorded a 4-out save, and the Yankees blanked the Red Sox 1-0 to take the series. While the Yankees gained a game in the division over the weekend, they lost a game in the wildcard race. With 3 weeks to go in the regular season, the Yankees trailed the Red Sox by 3 games in the AL East, and the Indians by a game and a half in the wild card. As mentioned earlier, the Cleveland Indians were the biggest surprise in the American League in 2005. After trailing the White Sox in the Central by as much as 15 games, they now had closed that gap to 5.5, and now led the wild card after a 7-game winning streak. On Monday, September 12th, they kicked off a 3-game series at home against the A's, who had also gone on a second-half tear and were just 2.5 back in the wild card. That night, it was a pitcher's duel between Dan Haren and CC Sabathia. In the third, Jason Kendall singled home Marco Scutaro, and that would be all the A's needed. Haren and 4 relievers combined for a 2-hit shutout as they blinked the Tribe 2-0. As a result, the idle Yankees were now a game back of the Indians, and the A's only a game and a half back. Also that night, the Red Sox began a 3-game series north of the border. In the top of the 4th, Big Papi opened the scoring with a solo shot all the way to the Hard Rock Cafe out there. In the 6th, Manny added a 3-run shot off the restaurant in center field to give the Sox a 4-0 lead. However, the Blue Jays would come back. Gabe Gross connected on a bases-loaded single to put the Jays on the board. Later in the inning, Vernon Wells hit his 25th homer of the year, a 3-run shot to tie the game at 5. The game went to extras, and in the 11th, Ortiz hit his 2nd home run of the game, and the Sox prevailed 6-5. On Tuesday night, the A's looked to gain some more ground on the Indians in the wild card. With the A's already up 1-0 in the 5th, they doubled their lead on a Victor Martinez pass ball, scoring Nick Swisher from third. In the bottom of the inning, after Grady Sizemore took an inside pitch for a called strike, manager Eric Wedge was ejected from the dugout. The Indians couldn't risk giving up sole possession of the wild card. Could his ejection spark something? Well, if he sparked anything, the sparks literally went out at the stadium. The game was delayed for 21 minutes until the lights came back on. That may have been the spark the Indians needed, as in the bottom of the 7th, Ben Broussard connected on a 2-run blast to tie the game. Starter Kevin Millwood stayed on the mound into the 8th and got Scott Hatteberg to ground into a nicely turned inning-ending 4-6-3 double play. In the bottom of the 8th, with 2 on and 2 out, it was that man again. Ben Broussard launched his 2nd home run of the game to give the Tribe the lead. In the 9th, Bob Wickman got the save on this weird double play here as he collided with Dan Johnson approaching first base, but apparently the latter never touched the base. Wickman got the ball, got up, and touched first to end the game. The A's lost a chance to get within half a game of the wild card. As it turned out, the Indians really needed that win as the Yankees crushed the Devil Rays 17-3. Jason Giambi hit a 3-run homer in the 1st, his 20th home run since the All-Star break, and the Yankees kept pace with the Indians, still just a game back. On the shores of Lake Ontario, the Blue Jays scored 5 runs in the 2nd against the Red Sox on their way to a 9-3 victory. Their division lead was now down to just 2.5 games. On Wednesday night, it was the rubber match between the A's and the Indians. With the Tribe up 3-0 in the 6th, it became the Nick Swisher show. He hit a 3-run home run off Jake Westbrook to tie the game. In the bottom of the inning, Swisher made not 1, but 2 diving catches to help keep the game tied. In the 7th, though, with Zito still in the game, Ronnie Belliard hit a go-ahead 3-run homer. Bob Wickman got his league-leading 41st save, and the Indians took the series from the A's, keeping their wild-card lead. On the other side of the Great Lakes, the Red Sox were trying to avoid a series loss to the Blue Jays. Down 2-1 in the 5th, with 2 down, Gabe Kapler reached safely on a throwing error from Corey Koski. The next man up, Tony Graffinino, hit a go-ahead 2-run shot, but Kapler ruptured his Achilles while rounding second on the play, forcing Graffinino to stay put on the base path until a pinch runner came in and finished rounding the bases. Well, that was weird. In a tie game in the 8th, it was Big Papi again, hitting his 42nd home run of the season and 4th of the series, to give the Red Sox the lead, which they would not relinquish. Down in St. Pete, the Yankees looked to take their 2nd straight against the Devil Rays. Tied at 2 in the 5th, Robinson Cano hit a clutch 2-out 2-run single to put the Yanks ahead. In a tie game in the 7th, Derek Jeter hit a 2-out 2-run single to put the Yankees ahead once again. Jorge Posada threw out Julio Lugo trying to steal second to end the game, and the Yankees were able to keep pace with the Indians and Red Sox. On Thursday night, the Yankees looked to sweep the Devil Rays but trailed 5-1 into the 6th until Robinson Cano hit a grand slam to tie the game. Later in the inning, A-Rod hit a go-ahead 2-run homer, and the Yankees won 9-5, completing the sweep and pulling to within a half a game of the idle Indians. Despite being swept, the D-Rays actually finished with a winning record against the Yankees in 2005, the first time they had achieved that in their short franchise history. Up in Boston, the Red Sox welcomed the A's to town for 4 games, who had just recently lost ground in the wildcard race after losing 2 of 3 in Cleveland. Before an out was even recorded, Mark Kotsay gave the A's the lead with a 2-run single off Curt Schilling in the 1st. In the 7th, Jay Payton added some insurance with a 2-out RBI double, and the A's took Game 1 by the score of 6-2. Entering the weekend, the Red Sox division lead was now down to a game and a half, and while the A's were 3 games back in the wild card, they were tied for the AL West lead with the Angels. On Friday the 16th, the Indians welcomed the last-place Royals to town for 3 games. Trailing 1-0 in the 5th, Casey Blake hit a 2-run homer, followed by a solo shot from Grady Sizemore, and that was all the offense the Tribe needed as they held on to a 3-1 victory to maintain their wildcard lead. For the Yankees, it was now their turn to travel north of the border. Randy Johnson gave up a 3-run home run to Vernon Wells in the first, and then was ejected in the second after arguing balls and strikes. However, the Yankees' offense took over from there as Cano hit 2 home runs and A-Rod added another. The Yankees survived a late rally from the Jays to win their 5th game in a row by the score of 11-10 to stay half a game back of the Indians for the wild card. In Boston, the Red Sox needed to win to keep their 1.5 game lead atop the AL East. Trailing 2-1 in the 6th, Big Papi hit his 5th home run in as many games to tie it up at 2. The game went to extras when Manny Ramirez was hit by a Kichi Yabu pitch with the bases loaded to walk it off for the Sox. After Friday's results, the Red Sox were still up by a 1.5 games over the Yankees in the East. The Athletics were now trailing in the West and losing ground in the wild card, where the Yankees still trailed the Indians by just half a game. On Saturday afternoon, the Yankees led 1-0 into the 9th. With Mariano unavailable, Tom Gordon came on for the save, and was able to induce a game-ending 5-4-3 double play to Shea Hillenbrand with 2 on, and the Yankees won their 6th in a row. That night in Boston, tied at 1 in the 6th, Manny crushed a home run over the Monster, his 36th home run of the year. The Sox held on for a 2-1 win, ensuring that they would have the AL East lead by the end of the weekend. Could the Indians stay on top of the wild card? The Tribe got the scoring started early as Coco Crisp hit a 2-run homer before an out was even recorded. Later that inning, V-Mart connected on an RBI single, still with nobody out. The Tribe scored 5 that inning, but the Royals would come back. In the 6th, Emil Brown hit a 3-run shot to cut the lead to just 5-4. In the 9th, the Royals had runners on 2nd and 3rd with 2 down, but Bob Wickman struck out Justin Huber to earn his 43rd save of the season, keeping the Indians atop of the wild card. After Saturday's results, the Red Sox still led the division by a 1.5 games, and the Indians still led the wild card by half a game. The A's were starting to fall back in the AL West and wild card. On Sunday afternoon, the Indians looked to sweep the Royals. Already up 2-0 in the 4th, Ben Broussard doubled home V-Mart, and later that inning, Johnny Peralta hit a 3-run shot to put the Tribe up 8-0. They went on to win 11-0, ensuring they would stay on top of the wild card by the end of the day. In Boston, the Red Sox looked to go for the series win, but starter Matt Clement was knocked around early, allowing 7 earned runs over just an inning and a third. Eric Chavez hit 2 home runs en route to a 12-3 victory for the Athletics, who salvaged a series split. Now, could the Yankees take advantage of the Red Sox loss? Well, they didn't get off to a good start either, as Jarrett Wright allowed 4 runs over the first 2 innings. However, just like on Friday night, the Yankees would come back. In the 3rd, A-Rod hit a 2-run shot to cut the deficit in half, his 44th home run of the season. Wright would have to be taken out of the game in the next inning after part of Eric Hinsky's broken bat hit his elbow on his throwing arm. In the 8th, with the Yanks still down by 2, Derek Jeter hit a solo shot to cut the deficit to 1. In the 9th, he came up again with 2 down and the tying run on 2nd, but Miguel Batista struck him out looking to put an end to the Yankees' 6-game winning streak. They lost ground in the wild card and were unable to gain ground in the division. With just 2 weeks to go in the regular season, the Yankees trailed the Red Sox and Indians each by a 1.5 games in the division and wild card, respectively. For most of the year, the Chicago White Sox looked like they would run away with the American League's best record. On August 1st, they held a 15-game lead over the Indians in the AL Central and a 9.5-game lead over the next best team in the AL. However, a slump in August, combined with an Indian surge at the same time, meant their division lead was now only 3.5 games on the morning of September 19th. The two would face each other in a pivotal 3-game series on the South Side starting on Monday night. But first, earlier that evening, the Red Sox traveled down to St. Pete for a 3-game series against the Devil Rays. The Sox led 2-0 into the 3rd, but the D-Rays scored 4 times that inning off David Wells, knocking him out of the game. Now trailing 7-4 in the 7th, the red-hot David Ortiz delivered a 2-run double to make it a 1-run ballgame. However, the D-Rays would get one back in the bottom of the 8th when Johnny Gomes hit a grounder that a drawn-in Edgar Renteria booted, scoring Carl Crawford from third. Ortiz hit a solo shot in the 9th to make it a 1-run game again. However, Danny Spias got the save by striking out Manny. The Devil Rays played spoiler against the Red Sox, something they were unable to do against the Yankees a week prior. Speaking of which, this now gave the Yankees an opportunity to gain ground on their rivals as they kicked off a 4-game series at home against the Orioles. The teams were tied at 2 entering the bottom of the 9th when Quad A player Bubba Crosby stepped to the plate.
Driven deep to right field. Going back, Gibbons looking up. See ya! A walk-off home run for Bubba Crosby.
The Yankees were now within half a game of the Red Sox, the closest they had been in 2 months. Now, how could the Indians respond to all of this? The Tribe were a dismal 3-10 against the White Sox at this point in 2005, but as mentioned earlier, these two teams were heading in opposite directions since the last time they played each other in mid-July. The Indians had made up 11.5 games over the last 46 days to make for an exciting division race. On Monday night, the Indians jumped out to a 3-0 lead early and extended it to 4-0 on Travis Hafner's solo shot in the 5th. However, in the bottom of the inning, the White Sox showed why they were the best team in the AL. Joe Creedy singled home Aaron Rowan with 1 out to put the Sox on the board. After a Scott Podsednik single, Tadahito Iguchi singled home Creedy, advancing Podsednik to third. 2 batters later, Paul Konerko hit a 2-out, 2-run double to tie the game at 4. In the 7th, still tied at 4, Carl Everett hit a solo shot to give the White Sox the lead for the first time. However, in the top of the 8th, the Tribe got runners on 2nd and 3rd with 2 down, and Bobby Jenks came on to get Aaron Boone, but he singled up the middle with 2 strikes to give the Indians the lead back. Bob Wickman got his 44th save of the year, and the Indians held their 1.5-game lead in the wild card and were now only 2.5 back of the White Sox in the division. On Tuesday night, the Yankees stayed hot. Gary Sheffield hit a grand slam in the 2nd inning just inside the fair pole, and A-Rod added another home run late. The Yankees won for the 8th time in their last 9 games, this one by the score of 12-9. This meant that the Red Sox now had to win to keep their place atop the AL East. They started off strong as David Ortiz hit yet another home run, a 2-run shot in the 1st. The next man up, Manny Ramirez, then hit 1 out, the first time that Big Papi and Manny had went back-to-back all season. In the 3rd, Ortiz crushed another 2-run homer, and in the 5th, Manny also hit his 2nd home run of the night, and the Red Sox cruised to a 15-2 victory to hang on to first place in the division. Later that night, in Chicago, the top 2 teams in the American League squared off again. Mark Burley started for the White Sox, which was notable because the last time he faced the Indians on July 16th, he threw a pitch at Travis Hafner's face, which put him on the DL for nearly 3 weeks. Flash forward 2 months, Hafner was ready to get his revenge, and revenge he got, with a solo shot in the 4th to put the Indians on top 3-2. In the 7th, with Burley now out of the game, Hafner ripped an RBI double down the right field line to give the Tribe a 5-3 lead. In the bottom of the inning, though, with the Sox down by just 1, Aaron Rowan lifted a sac fly with the bases loaded to tie the game. However, A.J. Przinsky advanced to 3rd, and the throw got away, allowing A.J. to score to take the lead. In the 8th, the Tribe had runners at the corners with 2 down, with Coco Crisp at the plate, but Juan Uribe was able to make a nice play to throw out Coco to preserve the lead. The Tribe battled back in the 9th when V-Mart lifted a double over Aaron Rowan, who got turned around on the play, moving Johnny Peralta up to 3rd. The next man up, Ronnie Belliard, brought home Peralta with an RBI groundout, and the game went to extras. In the bottom of the 10th, Joe Creedy led off for the Sox.
He looks up. You can put it on the board. Yes!
After Tuesday's results, the White Sox regained their 3.5-game lead over the Indians in the Central, whose lead over the Yankees was back to half a game in the wild card. On Wednesday night, the Red Sox looked to win the series against the Devil Rays, but it didn't start out so well, as there was an early Manny being Manny moment when he didn't run out a ground ball that the pitcher bobbled in the 1st inning. However, In the 5th, Manny would make up for his mistake by hitting his 39th home run of the season to give the Sox a 4-2 lead. But those pesky Devil Rays would come back. With Tim Wakefield still in the game in the 8th, Jorge Cantu delivered a 2-out RBI single to make it a 1-run game. Manager Terry Francona pulled Wakefield for Mike Timlin, who promptly gave up a single to Travis Lee, moving Cantu over to third. Next up, Johnny Gomes lined a 2-run double into left center field, giving the D-Rays the lead. They wound up scoring 5 that inning to play spoiler and take 2 of 3 from the Red Sox. This opened the door for the Yankees to take the division lead for the first time in over 2 months. Could they take advantage? That night in the Bronx, Matt Lawton put the Yankees up early with a 2-run home run the second. Randy Johnson pitched 8 innings, allowing only 1 run and 3 hits. Rivera allowed a couple men to reach in the 9th, but got the save, and the Yankees now had a half-game lead in the division. This meant the Indians now had to win to keep sole possession of the wild card. Looking to respond from last night's disappointing loss, the Indians struck first on Casey Blake's solo shot in the 3rd. In the top of the 6th, with Peralta at bat and Sizemore on 3rd, John Garland threw behind Peralta, allowing Sizemore to come home and score on the wild pitch. In the 8th, Travis Hafner put the game away with a 3-run homer, and the Tribe scored a few more to win 8-0. With just a week and a half to go in the regular season, the White Sox lead over the Indians was still at 2.5 games in the division, and the Tribe led the Red Sox by a full game in the wild card. On Thursday night, the Yankees looked to sweep the Orioles. It was a nice pitcher's duel between Mike Mussina and Bruce Chen until Jorge Posada hit a 3-run home run in the 6th to give the Yankees a 5-1 lead, his second home run of the game. Gary Sheffield added another home run in the 7th. The Orioles scored a few runs late to make it a 1-run game, but the Yankees thwarted the comeback to complete the 4-game sweep. The Yankees now had a full game division lead for the first time all season, as the Red Sox were idle that night. The Indians looked to stay hot, visiting the lowly Royals for a 4-game series. In the 3rd inning, it was that man again, Travis Hafner, coming through with his 6th home run in the last 5 games. This one a 3-run shot to give the Tribe a 4-1 lead. However, the Royals would tie it in the 4th on a grand slam from Mark Tien off Cliff Lee. After the Royals took the lead in the bottom of the 6th, Coco Crisp gave the Indians the lead right back with a 2-run shot in the 7th. The Tribe scored 2 more in the 8th and the 9th each to pull away with an 11-6 victory, extending their wildcard lead to a game and a half over the Red Sox. They also got some help from the Twins, who defeated the White Sox 4-1 in 11 innings. This meant that the Sox lead in the Central was down to just a game and a half after being up by as much as 15 games at the beginning of August. For the weekend, the Red Sox traveled up the eastern seaboard to Baltimore to take on the Orioles for 3, while the Yankees stayed at home to host the Blue Jays for 3. On Friday night in the Bronx, the captain Derek Jeter got the party started with a leadoff home run in the bottom of the 1st. The next man up, Robinson Cano, sliced a ball down the left field line just over the wall, and the Yankees had hit 2 home runs off Ted Lilly before he even recorded an out. Later in the inning, Hideki Matsui doubled home A-Rod to make it 3-0. Yankees starter Sean Chacon pitched 8 shutout innings, allowing only 3 hits, and the Yankees won their 5th in a row again to keep their 1-game lead in the division. Could the Red Sox keep pace? Well, it didn't start out well for them, trailing 3-1 in the 5th. It looked like it would stay that way until Miguel Tejada's throwing error kept the inning alive for the Red Sox, scoring Alex Cora, making it a 3-2 game. Next up, Trot Nixon laced a double into right center field, scoring Edgar Renteria and Manny, giving the Red Sox the lead. All 3 runs that inning were unearned. In the 7th, Manny hit a 2-run homer to give the Sox a 6-3 lead, which would ultimately be the final score. Bronson Arroyo earned his 14th win of the season, and the Red Sox kept pace with the Yankees. Now it was the Indians' turn to stay a game and a half up over the Red Sox in the wild card and potentially creep closer to the White Sox in the division. Up 2-1 in the 3rd, Travis Hafner, who else, hit a 2-run homer in his 6th straight game with a home run. However, the Royals would come back to make it a 1-run game. After a lights-out delay in the bottom of the 8th, Mark Tien hit a solo shot to left to tie the game at 6. In the top of the 9th, with 1 out, Grady Sizemore reached on a Andres Blanco error. Next up, Coco Crisp hit a high chopper back towards the pitcher, whose throw to first was off target, allowing Sizemore to advance to 3rd. Next up, Johnny Peralta singled home Sizemore through the left side, and the Tribe went on to win by that 7-6 score, maintaining their wildcard lead. On Saturday afternoon, the Yankees did not get off to a good start. Jared Wright has a history of struggling against the Blue Jays, and Hideki Matsui dropped yet another fly ball out in left field, his third drop of the month. Wright just couldn't catch a break, as Greg Zahn hit a liner right back at him, the third time this month he had experienced something like that. After the Jays scored 4 runs in the top of the first, the Yankees answered back with a 2-run shot from A-Rod in the bottom of the inning, his 46th home run of the year. However, it would not be enough, as the Blue Jays held on for a 7-4 victory, playing a bit of spoiler. Could the Red Sox take advantage later that night? The Sox scored 2 in the first, but starter Matt Clement worked himself into some trouble in the second, issuing 3 walks, but he got Luis Matos to fly out to end the frame. Clement again walked 3 in the fourth, but got Matos once again, this time on a fielder's choice, to end the inning. In the 7th, Melvin Mora hit a 2-run homer off rookie Chris Hansen to tie the game up at 2, and that score held into the 9th, where Edgar Renteria came through with a bases-loaded single to put the Red Sox up by a pair. The Orioles got 1 in the bottom of the 9th, but the Sox held on for a 1-run victory, moving back into a tie with the Yankees for first place in the AL East. That night in Kansas City, the Indians' offense stayed hot, as Johnny Peralta hit a 2-run homer in the first, his 23rd of the season, to give the Tribe an early lead. In the 8th, the Indians poured it on. Coco Crisp hit a 2-run homer, and Ben Broussard hit a bases-clearing double on his birthday. The Tribe won 11-4 to keep their 1.5-game lead in the wild card with just 7 games remaining. On Sunday, the Yankees looked to take the series from the Blue Jays, but Eric Hinsky had other ideas, connecting on a 2-run shot off Chen-Ming Wang in the 5th to give the Jays the lead. However, the Yankees would answer right back with a Jeter RBI single in the bottom of the inning to make it a 3-2 game. In the 7th, Robinson Cano, who had a base-running gaffe earlier in the game, hit a 2-run homer to give the Yankees the lead back. Gary Sheffield then put the game away with a 3-run homer in the bottom of the 8th, and the Bronx Bombers won their 5th consecutive series. Could the Red Sox remain tied with them? For the second straight game, the Sox got off to a good start, scoring 4 runs in the first inning this time. Manny hit a 2-run homer again, then Old Man John Olerud connected on a 2-run single. David Wells pitched well from there on out, and the Red Sox swept the Orioles to remain tied with the Yankees. Those two teams would meet at Fenway next weekend for a pivotal season-ending 3-game series. Could the Indians win their 5th in a row and keep their 1.5-game lead? The Tribe looked like they would roll once again, as V-Mart hit a 3-run homer off Zach Greinke in the first to give the Indians an early lead. However, the 100-loss Royals were looking to play spoiler, and they scored 3 unearned runs in the 6th to tie it, 2 of which came on this homer from Emil Brown. The Royals took the lead in the 7th as Mark Teahen scored on a Jake Westbrook wild pitch. The Royals looked to extend their lead in the 8th with the bases loaded and no one out, but Johnny Peralta made a nice play to get the lead runner at home for out number 1. Next up, Matt Stairs grounded into another fielder's choice, this one first to home, for out number 2. Westbrook then got Teahen to fly out to escape the 8th, still down by just 1 run. In the top of the 9th, with runners on 2nd and 3rd and 1 out, Casey Blake grounded out to 2nd, but was able to bring home Ronnie Belliard from 3rd to tie the game. In the bottom of the 9th, with Angel Berroa on 2nd and 1 out, Paul Phillips hit a routine fly ball to center field, but Grady Sizemore lost it in the sun. He could not make the catch, and Phillips came home to score the winning run. It was a tough loss for the Indians, whose wild card lead was back down to half a game with 1 week remaining in the regular season. Additionally, the White Sox had won their last 3 against the Twins to take a 2.5-game lead in the division entering the final week. Like the Red Sox and Yankees, the White Sox and Indians would meet at the Jake next weekend for a 3-game series to close out the season. The Tribe were idle on Monday, as the White Sox, Red Sox, and Yankees would each play their game in hand that night. Well, at least the Red Sox were scheduled to, until their series opener against the Blue Jays was rained out. They would make it up tomorrow with a doubleheader. Speaking of makeup games, the Yankees opened up their 4-game series in Baltimore with a makeup from June 29th. Scoreless in the 4th, the Yankees blew it open, scoring 6 times in the frame. First on a Jeter bases-loaded walk, then an A-Rod 2-run double, then a Jason Giambi 3-run homer. The Yanks cruised to an 11-3 victory, retaking a half-game lead in the AL East. The Indians did get some help from the Tigers that night, who took Game 1 of their 4-game series against the White Sox, meaning the AL Central lead was down to 2 games with 6 to go. On Tuesday afternoon, The Red Sox and Blue Jays played Game 1 of their doubleheader at Fenway. Big Papi stayed hot with an RBI double in the 5th to put the Sox up 3-1. That score held into the 8th when the Jays put runners on the corners with 2 down, but rookie Jonathan Papelbon struck out Shea Hillenbrand swinging to end the threat. Mike Timlin got the save in the 9th, and the Sox and Yanks were tied once again, not only for the division lead, but also for the wild card with the Indians for the moment. In the nightcap, the Sox scored 3 times in the 3rd to take the lead, but the Blue Jays were 9-6 against the Red Sox at this point in the season, and down 5-2 in the 5th, they would start to mount a comeback. Frank Catalanato's RBI ground rule double in the 5th made it a 5-3 game. In the 7th, down 5-4, Vernon Wells hit an RBI single off Curt Schilling, who was still in the game, to tie it at 5. In the top of the 8th, with runners on 2nd and 3rd and 1 down, Russ Adams delivered a sac fly to right, scoring Greg Zahn and giving the Jays the lead. They added another in the 9th to win 7-5, splitting the doubleheader and helping out the Yankees and Indians. That night in Baltimore, Mike Mussina did not get off to a good start against his former team, giving up 5 runs in just an inning and 2/3. However, the Yankees' offense would come to life. In the next inning, Gary Sheffield hit a 2-run homer to make it a 2-run deficit. In the inning after that, after striking out Jeter and A-Rod, Bruce Chen gave up a go-ahead grand slam to Sheffield, his 2nd home run in as many innings. However, the Orioles wanted to put an end to their 9-game losing streak, and they took the lead right back in the bottom of the 4th on this Jay Gibbons 2-run homer. The Yankees relievers would fall apart in the 5th inning, walking in 2 more runs and another scored on a passed ball. Gary Sheffield was even robbed of his 3rd home run of the night later on. The Yankees were not able to take advantage of the Red Sox loss. The Orioles were finally able to succeed in playing the role of spoiler, winning 17-9, helping out the Red Sox and Indians. Could the Tribe take advantage of the Red Sox and Yankees losing at home against the lowly Devil Rays? Well, it didn't look good for the Indians early on, as the D-Rays took a 3-0 lead in the 4th on a Julio Lugo 2-run homer. However, just as they had done many times earlier in the season, the Tribe would come back. Down 5-3 in the 9th, V-Mart laced an RBI single to center, putting the tying run just 90 feet away. Next up, Ronnie Belliard hit a sharp grounder up the middle, but it resulted in a game-ending 4-6-3 double play. For the 2nd straight game, the Indians lost by 1 run. The White Sox also lost to the Tigers earlier that night, meaning all 4 teams from the Central and East vying for a playoff spot all lost. No one was able to take advantage of the others' losses. With 5 games to play, the Indians trailed the White Sox by 2 games in the division and were tied with the Yankees and Red Sox for the wild card. On Wednesday night, the Blue Jays got off to a good start, as Vernon Wells hit a 2-run homer off Bronson Arroyo in the 1st over the monster. In the 3rd, Frank Catalanato came up big again with a solo shot just inside Pesky's pole. Later in the inning, Eric Hinsky hit a 2-run homer to deep center to give the Blue Jays a 5-1 lead. In the 4th, Catalanato delivered again with a 2-run double off the monster. The Jays played spoiler once again, defeating the Sox 7-2 for their 11th head-to-head win this season. This opened the door for the Yankees to retake the division lead. However, it was the Orioles who struck first on a Javi Lopez solo homer in the 2nd. It stayed 1-0 until the 6th when A-Rod hit his 47th home run of the season to tie the game at 1. Derek Jeter would give the Yankees the lead in the next inning on an RBI single. Next up, A-Rod flew out to deep right field, allowing Bernie Williams to come home from 3rd, but he was called out by the home plate umpire despite appearing to be safe. Nevertheless, the Yankees held on for a 2-1 victory to retake a 1-game lead in the division with just 4 games to go. For the 2nd straight night, the Indians now had the chance to take back sole possession of the wildcard spot. However, for the 2nd straight night, the Devil Rays were giving them fits. Scoreless in the top of the 8th, Toby Hall led off the inning with a double off starter Cliff Lee. Joey Gathright pinch ran for him and advanced to 3rd on Damon Hollins' sac bunt. He then scored on Julio Lugo's sac fly to score the game's first run. In the bottom of the 8th, the Indians answered with a leadoff double of their own from Ben Broussard off starter Seth McClung. However, the Tribe were unable to advance him any further. Aaron Boone was unable to get a bunt down, then McClung induced 2 straight groundouts to the left side, then got Sizemore to line out, ending the inning without giving up a run. In the next inning, Coco led off with a single, but for the 2nd straight night, Danny Spias induced a 4-6-3 double play, and then Hafner grounded out to end the game. The Indians had lost their third straight game, each by 1 run. The Devil Rays had the Indians' number in 2005, taking 6 of the 9 contests against them thus far, including all 5 games at the Jake. Despite another 90-plus loss season, the D-Rays actually finished with a winning record after the All-Star break, and gave the other 2 contending teams, the Yankees and Red Sox, fits as well. The White Sox defeated the Tigers 8-2 that night, to take a 3-game lead in the division with just 4 to play, shrinking their magic number to just 1. With 4 games to go, the Indians and Red Sox were still tied for the AL wildcard. On Thursday afternoon, the White Sox defeated the Tigers 4-2 to clinch not only a playoff spot, but the division as well. Perhaps this was a good sign for the Indians, as the Sox would now have less to play for over the weekend. Before that, though, the Tribe still had to avoid a sweep at home against the Devil Rays, whom they were 3-6 against so far in 2005. This time, the Indians got off to a good start as Travis Hafner snapped his 4-game homerless streak with a 2-run shot in the first. Later in the inning, Ronnie Belliard also hit a 2-run homer to give the Tribe a 4-0 lead. In the third, Johnny Peralta hit his solo shot, setting the team record for most home runs in a season by a shortstop. CC Sabathia pitched 8 scoreless innings, and the Indians salvaged the series with a 6-0 victory. Now, could they get help from the Orioles or Blue Jays? Well, the Yankees also happened to score 4 runs in the first inning. Jason Giambi hit a 3-run homer, and Ruben Sierra got an RBI single. Matsui added a 2-run homer in the 7th, and the Yankees went on to win 8-4, keeping their 1-game lead atop the AL East entering the final weekend. Since they've been featured 11 times in this episode, I might as well mention that the Baltimore Orioles actually had a great start to the 2005 season. They led the division by as much as 4.5 games in late May at 14 games over 500 and held first place up until late June. They even led the wild card just after the All-Star break. However, the O's slumped the rest of the season and fired manager Lee Mazzilli in early August after losing 8 in a row, including 16 of 18. It would be an 8th straight losing season for the Orioles. The Yankees' win meant that the Red Sox now had to win to stay tied with the Indians and within a game of their rivals. However, the Blue Jays were looking to play spoiler and win their 3rd in a row. Up 2-1 in the 5th, Frank Catalanotto extended the Jays' lead with a 2-run shot. In the bottom of the 6th, David Ortiz led off the inning with a grounder to second in the shift, but shortstop Russ Adams cut in front of second baseman Aaron Hill, who would have had a sure out on the play. Instead, the Sox had the leadoff man on, and next up, Manny hit an opposite field home run to cut the deficit to 1. Fast forward to the 8th, Big Papi led off the inning again, and this time hit his 47th home run of the season to tie the game at 4. Later in the inning, the Sox had runners at the corners and 2 down, and Trot Nixon hit a fly ball to deep right center field, but Vernon Wells tracked it down to make a nice sliding catch to keep the game tied. In the bottom of the 9th, the Sox got runners on 1st and 2nd with 1 down for guess who?
Tees drives it into left center. Here comes Damon. Here comes a win. The throw to the plate. Not in time. Red Sox win.
Everyone in contention won on Thursday. This set up an exciting final weekend where the Yankees, who led the Red Sox by only 1 game, traveled to Fenway for 3. Meanwhile, the Indians, who were tied with the Red Sox for the wild card, would host the White Sox for 3. The White Sox had already clinched the division, but still needed to win a couple to clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs. On Friday night at Fenway, the Yankees struck first off David Wells on a Hideki Matsui bases-loaded single. However, Wells was able to escape the jam, allowing only 1 run. In the bottom half of the inning, the Red Sox got that run right back as Big Papi singled up the middle off Chen-Ming Wang, scoring Johnny Damon from second. In the next inning, Jason Varitek hit the very first pitch of the inning over the wall in left center to give the Sox the lead. That score held into the 6th when Matsui lined a double to right center with Giambi on first. However, Giambi was held at third with only 1 out. Next, Wells got Posada to ground out to third, holding Giambi. After that, Wells got Ruben Sierra to pop out to center to end the inning without allowing a run. In the bottom of the inning, Wong walked Trot Nixon with the bases loaded to extend the Sox lead. Next, Varitek hit a chopper to first, but Giambi's throw home was poor and Posada couldn't hang on. The Red Sox now led 4-1 on the E3. Olerud tacked on a sac fly to make it 5-1, with those last 2 runs being unearned. That would be key, as Derek Jeter hit a 2-run homer in the next inning to make it a 2-run ballgame. However, the Red Sox bullpen would not allow any more runs, and they held on for a 5-3 victory to once again move into a tie with the Yankees atop the division. Now, could the Indians stay tied with them? That night at the Jake, despite resting most of their starters, the White Sox led 1-0 into the 9th, but the Tribe got runners on 2nd and 3rd with nobody out against Damaso Marte. Ozzie brought in closer Dustin Hermanson to put out the fire. He retired the first man he faced, Ronnie Belliard, on a grounder to short, but pinch runner Franklin Gutierrez came home to tie the game. After Ben Broussard was walked intentionally, Hermanson got Aaron Boone to ground into an oh-so-familiar double play. Oh wait, they didn't tag Broussard. The play's still alive. V-Mart's going to round 3rd and score. No! Indians, what are you doing?
Score, bottom of your screen, so the inning is over. Look at Indians third base coach Joel Skinner. He's right there. Holds Martinez, then decides, you know what, I'm going to send him. But Martinez cannot score before Broussard is tagged out. A crucial bit of indecisiveness by Joel Skinner.
The game went to the 11th, where the Indians had another opportunity to win with the bases loaded and 1 out. However, Neil Cott struck out Broussard, then got Boone to ground out to 3rd to end the inning and extend the game. In the top of the 13th, with 2 on and 2 down, backup first baseman Ross Glode, batting just .150 on the year and 0 for 5 for the night, lined a double to center field, scoring 2 runs to give the White Sox the lead. Belliard hit a solo home run in the bottom of the 13th, but that wouldn't be enough, as it was yet another crushing 1-run defeat for the Tribe. They now trailed the wild card for the first time since September 7th, over 3 weeks earlier. They wouldn't have long to dwell on it though, as the 2 teams would be back at it only 14 hours later. Meanwhile, the White Sox had now clinched home field advantage throughout the playoffs. On Saturday, both games would be played simultaneously on Fox, starting at 1:25 Eastern Time. Starting off in Boston, the Yankees got to Tim Wakefield early. Jeter and A-Rod led off the game with back-to-back singles, then Giambi brought home Jeter with an RBI fielder's choice. Next up, Gary Sheffield launched his 34th home run of the year to give the Yankees a 3-0 lead before the Red Sox even came up to bat. However, the big unit had his share of struggles in the bottom of the first, allowing a 2-run shot to Manny on an 0-2 pitch with 2 outs, his 44th home run of the season, and the Red Sox were back within 1. In the second, Wakefield got a bit unlucky as Kevin Millar was unable to squeeze a liner from Bernie Williams, which could have been a double play. Instead, it was ruled a double, and the Yankees got those 2 runs right back on back-to-back sacrifice flies. In the bottom of the second, Johnson ran into trouble again, allowing a single and walking 2 to load the bases with 2 down, but he struck out Edgar Renteria on a full count to escape danger. Wakefield's struggles continued in the third, as he gave up a solo home run to Matsui to make it 6-2 New York. Over to Cleveland, it was a pitcher's duel between Jake Westbrook and John Garland. Westbrook got some nice help from his defense early on to help his cause. Scoreless in the 5th, the Tribe had Belliard on second, with Casey Blake at the plate.
There's the big hit. It is bobbled, and Blake is heading for second, head first. 1-0.
The Indians got that much-needed first run, and they were looking to add more with Grady Sizemore now at bat.
Whoever gets the key hit.
On 2-2, Ozuna backpedaled. And he dropped it. A foul ball, the inning continues. It was very close to being fair, in which case it would have been 2-0.
Now going back out there, the shadows now creeping in. The light tower.
Pablo Ozuna got a little fortunate there that it was going to be a foul ball, but for how much longer could that luck hold up?
Breathing new life, 2-2 count, Sizemore. Lifting it to left. Coming on! Glowed, last night's hero offensively.
Back to Boston, in the 5th, A-Rod crushed another home run, his 48th of the season, and the Yankees led it 7-2. Back to Cleveland, in the 7th, the White Sox had runners on the corners with 1 out when Pablo Ozuna hit a high chopper to the left side that neither Boone nor Westbrook could get to, scoring Aaron Rowan from third to tie the game. Westbrook got Timo Perez to line out to right for out number 2, but still had to face Tadahito Iguchi to get out of the inning.
which I think, Rick, has kept the fans from doing too much hand-wringing. I mean, it kind of makes them clap, makes them do something.
Well, they've been like this for the last couple of days, sitting on the edge of their seats.
In the air, center field, backpedaling Sizemore at the track to the wall. It's gone. 2 out, 3-run homer, Tadahito Iguchi. And a sock to the stomach of these fans here in Cleveland.
A massive dagger to the hearts of Indians fans, and a massive help to the Yankees and Red Sox. However, the Indians would come back. After chasing Garland, Aaron Boone singled home V-Mart to make it a 4-2 ballgame. The next man up, Casey Blake, delivered his second RBI of the afternoon with a double ripped down the left field line, scoring Boone all the way from first to make it a 4-3 game. Damaso Marte came in to face Grady Sizemore, and on the 8th pitch of the at-bat, he struck him out swinging to keep the White Sox in front. In the next inning, Johnny Peralta singled with 1 out, then Travis Hafner lifted a fly ball to deep left field high off the wall for a double, putting runners on second and third. V-Mart was intentionally walked to load the bases. With the tying and go-ahead runs on base, Cliff Pulley relieved Marte and got Ronnie Belliard to pop out to third for out number 2. Next, Broussard flew out to center to strand the bases loaded without scoring a run. Bobby Jenks pitched a 1-2-3 ninth, and once again, the Indians failed to cash in on a prime opportunity. It was another 1-run loss for the Tribe. Back to Boston, the big unit pitched 7 1/3 innings, allowing only 3 runs, and the Yankees won 8-4. With the Indians' loss, not only did they clinch a playoff spot, but also the division. After their terrible start to the season, and having led the division for only 19 days, the Yankees found a way to win the AL East for the 8th consecutive season. They won 16 of 20 games to clinch a playoff spot with a game to spare. Before we get to Sunday, we have to talk about the Indians. Entering the final game of the season, the Tribe held the best run differential in the American League, thanks to standout pitching from starters Kevin Millwood, Cliff Lee, CC Sabathia, Jake Westbrook, Scott Ilarton, and closer Bob Wickman. While the Indians were a fantastic 34-14 in games decided by 5 or more runs, they were a dismal 22-36 in games decided by 1 run. Their last 6 losses had all been by 1 run. Additionally, they were a dismal 5-13 against the division champion White Sox, and 9 of those 13 losses were by 1 run. In fact, their head-to-head run differential was only -3, despite losing 8 more games. In 9 home games against the Sox, they lost 8 of them. In fact, despite winning 50 games away from home in 2005, the Tribe only won 43 at the Jake. In order to make the playoffs, they needed to defeat the White Sox, hope the Red Sox lose to the Yankees, and then defeat the Red Sox in a play-in game at Fenway on Monday night. On Sunday, the Indians-White Sox game started an hour before the Yankees-Red Sox game. The Indians did not get off to a great start, as Jermaine Dye hit his 31st home run of the season, a solo home run off Scott Ilarton in the first. The White Sox would get 1 more in the second and third innings each to take a 3-0 lead, chasing Ilarton before the Red Sox game even started. Even though the Yankees had already wrapped up the division, they still wanted to win to get home field advantage in the ALDS against the Angels. Curt Schilling allowed some early traffic, but was able to escape without allowing any runs. The Red Sox loaded the bases in the bottom of the first for Jason Varitek, who lifted a fly ball to deep center field, but Bernie Williams was able to track it down. Back to Cleveland, rookie Brandon McCarthy was pitching well for the White Sox, but allowed runners to reach second and third with 2 down in the 5th. With a chance to tie the game, Johnny Peralta popped out to center, wasting yet another opportunity for the Indians to score. In the next inning, though, the Indians finally got on the board after back-to-back doubles from Hafner and V-Mart. However, Luis Vizcaíno relieved McCarthy and retired the next 3 to prevent the Tribe from getting any closer. Back to Boston, Jarrett Wright walked the bases loaded in the bottom of the 3rd with only 1 out, and the Red Sox struck first later that inning on a sac fly from Trot Nixon. In the 4th, the Yankees got runners at the corners with 2 down, but Schilling once again worked himself out of a jam by getting Ruben Sierra to fly out to center. In the bottom of the 4th, veteran Bill Mueller hit just his 10th home run of the season to extend the Red Sox lead to 2-0. Later in the inning, with Scott Proctor in for Wright, Big Papi stayed hot with a 2-out RBI single to put the Red Sox up 3-0. That brought Manny to the plate.
3-2 the count to Ramirez. Damon and Ortiz will be off with the pitch with 2 down. Ramirez checks it to center field. Bernie Williams going back, looking up, it is gone! 3-run home run for Manny Ramirez, his 45th of the year, and the Red Sox on top 6-0.
The former Indian may have just given the Indians their final death blow. Back to Cleveland, the White Sox relievers were able to keep the Indians off the board for the rest of the game. The Tribe had such a strong second half, only for their season to fall apart in the final week. They finished the season with the best run differential in the American League, but their terrible record against the White Sox and in one-run games is what ultimately kept them out of the playoffs. Yet another unlucky break for this cursed franchise.
2005 Wild Card champions.
Well, great news as the Red Sox headed back to the postseason. As Varitek lines it into center field. Well, we'll see what the crowd reaction will be here when it comes up on the board. It has not yet come up on the board here at Fenway Park. And there it goes. Well, maybe not yet. Yep, there it is. The defending world champions are headed back to the postseason.